The for loop in Python behaves differently than what you would find in other programming languages. It behaves more as an iterator over a sequence, such as a list, a tuple, or a string. Although we haven't gone through lists and tuples so far, we have had a fair experience with strings where we have printed string literals enclosed within double quotes. Now, in a for loop or using a for loop, what we can do is we can iterate over a sequence. And mind you, this sequence, like I mentioned, it can be a string or a list or a tuple. It can also be a range. So we'll see all of these shortly. Let's start with a very trivial example. So how do we use the for loop? We write the for keyword. So you write for, you give a space, and then you write the name of the variable using which you will iterate over the sequence. Let's say I use the variable name as item. This has to be a legal identifier. You use any legal identifier and then you give a space. You use the in keyword. Okay, the in keyword, which is more of an operator than a keyword. You give a space and then you give your sequence. Let's say my sequence is a string. Let's say the string is hello friend. And now you'll have to start the body of the loop. Now, in order to start the body of the loop, this is your for statement. Okay, you have written the for statement. After writing the for statement, you give a colon, you hit enter, and here, since we are working in Jupyter Notebook, the indentation happens automatically. Otherwise, if you remember from our videos on conditional statements, we had seen that we'll come to the new line and we'll give 4 spaces, right? So here indentation happens automatically for us. We'll take advantage of that and proceed. Now what we'll do is we'll print out the values of the sequence. So if I say print item and if I execute this, what happens is you can see that every character is printed on a separate line. See, my string is hello friend. So what will happen here? What is happening here? The item is the variable using which we are iterating over this string hello friend. So this item variable will contain the characters one after the other. So the order in which the characters appear in the string, that is the order which is followed by this variable item in accessing the string. And like we know that the print function prints a new line by default after printing a value. So after it prints, so what is the value of item in the first iteration? In the first iteration, item holds the first character, which is a capital H. So it prints capital H. After printing capital H, we know that the print statement, the print function rather, the print function automatically adds a new line. So after printing H, it automatically adds a new line and we go to the next line. And then we come to the next character. Which is the next character? It's small e. So small e is now stored in item. And then we print item. That means we print small e. So it goes on this way. What if you want to print this string on the same line? What change would you have to make? You would, if you remember from our earlier videos, we had shown you that the print function comes with an end parameter. And now we know that the end parameter by default is set to the new line character. If we change that to an empty string, okay, you just change that to an empty string, then what will happen is all the characters which are present in this string over which we are iterating, all of them will be printed on the same line. If you execute this, and there you have it. All the characters are printed on the same line. So this is how we can use the for loop to iterate over a sequence. Here, the sequence that we have used is a string sequence. Similarly, what we can do is we can use the for loop to iterate over a range of numbers. For that, we can use the built-in range function. So we can say range, and now this range function can be used in 3 ways. I'll show you all of them one by one. Let's say I specify a single number. Let's say I say range 5. Now what does this mean? Let me just complete this. So I give a colon, I move to the next line, I print out item. I print out item, and let's say my end parameter, since I want all the values to be displayed on the same line separated by a single space, I'll initialize the end parameter with a single space enclosed within double quotes. Now if I execute this, you find that the values that are printed are 0 to 4. Now from the output you can well make out what is happening here? See, when you say range 5, that means when you pass a single value to the range function, it denotes the ending point. It denotes the ending point. And remember, the range function is exclusive of the ending point. So it does not take into account 5. What about the starting point? If we have not mentioned anything about the starting point, that means if we have mentioned only a single argument to the range function, it denotes the end point exclusively, and the starting point is taken to be 0. So it will start, so when I say range 5, it will start from 0 by default, and it will go up to but not including 5. So it will go up to 4. I hope this is clear. You can play around with this. Let's say I change this from 5 to 15. Then what will be the values printed? The values printed will be starting from 0, because the default start value is 0. Whenever we specify a single value to range, the default start value happens to be 0, and the single value acts as a range. I mean, the single value that we pass acts as the endpoint of the range, and the values that are printed are always exclusive of this endpoint. So what will we get in the output? We'll get the values 0 to 14, because it's exclusive, like you can see. So by default, the starting value is 0, and it's exclusive of the ending point. So it is exclusive of 15. So it will go up to but not including 15. So what is the value just before 15? It's 14. So that is what you get. Range, the range function will always generate an arithmetic progression. It will always generate the numbers in an arithmetic progression. Just keep that in mind. Okay, now this was one way we can use the range function, where we specify a single value which denotes the starting point. I'm really sorry. We pass a single value and denotes the ending point, and the values start from 0 by default and go up to but not including the ending point which is specified. In this case, like we saw, it was 15. Now, what if we pass two values? Let's say I pass two values. Let's say 5, I pass the two values 5, 15. Then what does this denote? This denotes that 5 is the starting point and the ending point is 15, but not inclusive. That means it will go up to but not including 15. In range, remember, the end point is never taken into account. It is always exclusive of the end point. So it will start from 5 and it will go up to 14. Have a look. There you have it. It starts from 5 and it goes up to 14. Now there is a third variation of the range function. Let me show you that. So a third variation would look something like this. Let's say comma 3. Now if I print this, have a look. I'm getting these values 5, 8, 11, 14. How is this working? See, when I specify three values, the first value denotes the starting point. The second value denotes the ending point, but not inclusive of it. And the third value denotes the step size. So here it means that you start from 5 and then you go up to but not including 15 in increments of 3. So you will start from 5, then you print 5 because 5 is first stored in item. So you print 5 and then you see the step size. The step size is 3. So 5 plus 3 is 8. Then you print item again. So you print 8. You print 8. Then again the step count is incremented by 3. So item becomes 11. So again you print 11. Then again the step count is incremented by 3. So item becomes now 14. So you print 14. And then the step count is no longer taken into account because it exceeds the ending point. Okay, the moment it exceeds the ending point, we stop the iteration process. I hope this part is clear, where we can use the range function in three ways. The first one was a quick recap for you. The first one was you specify a single argument to range, which denotes the ending point but not inclusive of it. When you specify two values, it denotes the first value denotes the starting point and the second value denotes the ending point. Once again, not inclusive of the ending point, but inclusive of the starting point. And when we specify three values to the range function, the first value denotes the starting point, which is inclusive of it. The second value denotes the ending point, which is not inclusive of it. And the third value denotes the step size. That means by what factor will we increment the values in item? Okay, by what factor we'll get the consecutive values. So we'll start from 5, then we'll increment it by 3, so we get 8. Then again we increment it by 3, we get 11, and so on. So this is how the range function can be used to generate a sequence of numbers. In the first example, we saw how we can iterate over a sequence of characters, which is nothing but a string, right? I hope this part is clear up to now. Now what we can do is we can proceed to demonstrate another feature of the for loop, and that is the else portion. I'll show you. So if I say for item in range, let's say I say 20. So this means I'll start from 0 and go up to 19. Okay. Now, if let's say I write this, if I say item, let's say, let me put it this way. If item is greater than 10, if item happens to be greater than 10, then please break out of the loop. Okay. Or yeah, if item happens to be greater than 10, please break out of the loop. Otherwise, Otherwise, what we can do is we can simply print the value of item. Let's print it on a single line. So let's set the end parameter to an to not an empty string, to a string containing a single space. So now if we execute this cell, what do we get? We get the values starting from 0 going up to 10, isn't it? Now if you observe, so item starts from 0, then it goes to 1. So 0 is not greater than 10, 1 is not greater than 10, 2 is not greater than 10, and so on. And in this way it keeps on iterating. The condition is not satisfied. When we come to item receiving the value 10 from this range function, once again this condition is not satisfied. Why? Because 10 is not greater than 10. So again you print this value 10. Now the moment item becomes 11, what happens is this if condition is satisfied, and if this if condition is satisfied, we simply break out of the loop and bring an end to the code snippet. Okay, I hope this part is understood. Now what I'll do is I'll just add another feature to this for loop. Let's say I add an else part. Remember, loops in Python have an else part. And this else part, mind you, this else part is matched against this for statement. The else part that I have just included on line number 6 that you can see on your screen, this is included against the for statement on line number 1. So now if I have this else part, what I can do is I can have a statement here in this else block. Let's say I print goodbye. Now if I execute this, what do you see? We get the same output. That means this else block was not executed. Why is it so? Remember, the else block against a loop statement, whether it be a for loop or a while loop, which we'll see in the upcoming video, the else block can be placed against any loop statement, whether it be a for loop or a while loop, and it is executed the moment the loop condition is violated. The moment the for loop condition is violated, the else block is executed. But what is happening here? Here we are not getting this statement goodbye. Why is it so? Remember, whenever we use a jump statement like break, remember, break and continue are the two jump statements available in Python. Return can also be considered a jump statement, but since we are talking about loops, I'll just restrict it to break and continue for now. Yes, return, like many of you would argue, is also a jump statement, but for now, let's focus on break and continue. Now, if we have a break statement, right? If the loop prematurely comes out before all the items have been seen, like in this case, the loop will terminate prematurely. Why? Because whenever this condition, this if condition is satisfied, we are breaking out of the loop. We are not allowing this item variable to go through all the values generated by the range function. What are the values generated by the range function? The values generated by the range function are 0 to 19. So we are not allowing this item variable to go through all the values from 0 to 19. We are going through only this set of values 0 to 10. The moment this if condition is satisfied, what are we doing? We are prematurely coming out of the loop. The loop was expected to execute how many times? 20 times. But how many times did it execute? It actually executed 11 times, right? See, every time it executed, it printed a value. So it executed 11 times, but it was actually supposed to execute how many times? 20 times. So that's why we are saying that the loop has prematurely come to an end. Whenever the loop is terminated before all the conditions or before all the items have been iterated over, we say that the loop comes to an end prematurely. And why is the loop coming to an end prematurely? Because of this jump statement break. And remember, whenever a loop is prematurely exited due to a break statement, then the else part against the for loop will not be executed. If we are coming out of the loop prematurely due to a jump statement such as break, the else part against the for loop will not be executed. Okay, it will not be executed. Fine. What if we did not have this part? Okay, what if we just printed the values? What if we simply printed the values? Just make the, yeah. So what if I had something like this? Then what would have happened? Would the else part be printed? Yes, of course, because now my loop is not terminating prematurely. Now it's printed on the same line for obvious reasons, because after printing all the 20 values from 0 to 19, we are printing a space character using the end parameter of the print function. That's why a space is printed after 19 and not a new line character. If we omit this end parameter, then a new line character would have been printed and goodbye would have shown up on a separate line. So would have all the numbers. Since I have changed the end parameter to include a single space, all my numbers and even the final string goodbye appears on a single line. Coming back to our discussion, here what happened was the loop executed how many times? 20 times, and it was supposed to execute 20 times. So it did not come to an end prematurely. Due to this, the else part which is present against the for loop got executed as well. Whenever, so remember this point, whenever there is a premature exit of the loop due to a jump statement such as break, the else part, if it is present, the else part is optional, mind you, against the for loop. The else part is optional, like we have seen here. Here we have written 3 code snippets, right? In fact, 4 code snippets, none of where we have used the else part, but it still worked fine because the else part is optional. But if the else part is present and if all the iterations of the loop is completed, then the else part would be executed. But if the loop terminates prematurely, then the else part against the loop will not be executed. I hope this part is absolutely clear to you, right? Okay. Now, what I'll show you is one final thing, and that would be, just let me go to this next cell. I'll show you one last thing, that is the continue statement. What is this continue? This continue is another jump statement which works as follows. Let me just write down the code. Let's say for item in range 5, and or let me just increase the count a bit. Let's say range 10. So it will iterate over the numbers 0 to 9. And let's say I want to print only my odd numbers. Then what should I do? I should skip the even numbers. So one way of doing this is, see, it can be done in multiple ways. Just to demonstrate continue, I'm doing it in a particular way. Let's say I write if item mod 2. So what is the condition for checking whether a number is even or not? I've shown you the condition in one of my previous videos. You can go check that out. For now, remember that if a number on dividing by 2 gives a remainder of 0, you now which operator is used for remainder? Percentage. So if it gives a remainder of 0, then the number is set to be even. Now here we want to skip even numbers, right? So what we can do is we can say that if item mod 2 is equal to 0, that means if it is an even number, then please continue. That means whatever statement I'll write after this continue, whatever statement I'll write after line number 3 which contains continue will be skipped. So here if I write, let's say print, or let me just sum it up, okay? Let me sum up the values. So I can have a variable called, let me call the variables s, and I can say s plus equals item. Let's say I want to find the sum of all odd numbers. Now what happens is after I'm done with this, I can print out the sum. So I can say sum is, I can say sum is s. Now what is happening here is very interesting. See, what is this if condition just now I mentioned? It is the condition to check whether a number is even or not. If it is even, what are we doing? If it is even, we are executing this continue statement. What will the continue statement do? The continue statement will simply skip the lines in the body of the loop following it. So how many lines are present after this continue statement in the body of the for loop? A single line, which is line number 5. This the sum operation is present in line number 5, and this happens to be the only statement after my continue. That means this statement at line number 5 will be skipped. And where will we go? We'll again go back to the for statement. Then again another number will be generated. Again we'll check the if condition. If it does not happen to be an even number, then the condition is not satisfied, so the continue will not be executed. Where will we come? We'll come to line number 5 and we'll simply sum of the value. So all odd numbers will be summed up in this way. So how many odd numbers will we get? We will get 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. And if we sum up 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, you can probably guess the answer. Now if I execute this, you find that the sum is 25, which is indeed the case. If you sum up 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9, you indeed get 25, right? See, the summation is simple. 1 plus 3 is 4, plus 5 is 9, plus 7 is 16, plus 9 is 25. This is the calculation that I'm talking about. These numbers are only considered. Why? Because I am attaching an if condition. I'm attaching an if condition to the sum operation. I'm attaching an if condition to the sum operation. That's why what is happening is this this part due to this part, the part that I've highlighted, the even numbers are being skipped and odd numbers are being summed up due to line number 5. I hope this is clear to all of you. This is how we can use the continue statement as a second form of jump statement. Okay. So if you found this video useful, do like it and subscribe to our channel. If you have any doubts, please feel free to leave them in the comment section below. I hope you found this video useful, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.